is Monday, March 2nd. We have a great show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, I look at the Massachusetts School Choice Law of 1991, interviews with the Wareham School Department in the state. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the news headlines and the weather report are next. A fire displaced the residents of the home at 49 Puritan Ave off Glencherry Road on Sunday night. Wareham first responders responded to the fire around 8:31 p.m., as did Wareham EMS and police and onset fire. The fire caused extensive damage to the basement, and residents were home at the time, but no injuries were reported. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. However, the Wareham Assistant Fire Chief, John Kelly, thinks a space heater was likely the cause of the fire. And the Wareham Police Station called the hazardous materials team about 5 p.m. also yesterday after a resident bought a bottle of unknown liquid to the station. The bottle was placed outside the station. Police officers secured the area and called the Wareham Fire Department. The liquid was determined to be non-hazardous. And the Wareham High School track team ended its winter season victorious. Many of the athletes broke personal records and earned medals in the final two meets of the season. According to the coach, Chris Gardner, 17 out of 24 athletes achieved personal best at the South Coast Conference Championships. And the Onset Bay Center is currently accepting registration for summer programs. The on-water programs will run at Wickets Island, Burgess Point, and Shell Point marshes. Sailing, kayaking, and paddling, swimming, and exploring the coastline will be among many activities offered in the summer of 2020. Programs for adults and families also will be offered. Youth programs are scheduled to begin on June 29th and will run through the week of August 10. The youth programs are open to all residents of the Buzzards Bay region, but first priority for admission will be given to residents of Wareham and the village of Buzzards Bay, followed by adjacent communities of Middleborough, Carver, and South Plymouth. And South Coast Health Grant buys Wareham an ambulance. David Evans, Director of Emergency Medical Services, said that a third ambulance to the fleet will have an immediate positive impact on response time. And that concludes our morning news headlines. Coming next is the weather forecast. Partly cloudy with gusty winds this afternoon, high near 50 degrees, winds at 20 to 30 miles per hour. Some showers overnight, low around 44 degrees. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy, high near 55 degrees, winds at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Some rain in the morning, turning to steady showers overnight with low around 44 degrees. Mostly sunny on Wednesday, high around 53 degrees, winds at 15 to 25 miles per hour. We're looking at a 34 for a low. And great news for Thursday, plenty of sunshine with high around 52 degrees, winds at 10 to 25 miles per hour, and low around 33 degrees. That concludes this morning weather forecast. We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we're going to look at our first featured program. Our first featured program of the day, we're going to take a look at a local seamstress's generosity, which is making it possible for underprivileged girls to attend prom. Take a look. A local seamstress's generosity is making it possible for underprivileged girls to attend prom.
Hi. Good morning. Welcome. Come in. Thank you.
Working out of her home office, Ma Duke's Alterations and Quilting, Regina Hupgood shows WCTV her prom dress collection.
I wash them, hand wash them, press them, find out if there's any stitching that needs to be done, and they're ready to go.
As a foster mother, Regina strives to make every girl feel special, and this includes going to prom. She recently reached out to Wareham and Bourne community through their Facebook page, asking girls to donate their used prom dresses. So tell us about the need within our region. How many are we talking about? How many girls really need and could use this service?
A lot. You'd be surprised. A lot. Yeah, I've had a lot of girls that come in.
Regina works with DCF, Wareham, and Bourne High School to get in touch with foster kids in need of prom dresses. So these girls come, they take a look at these beautiful prom dresses. They say, I love this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the next step?
The next step would be to try it on.
Okay.
And if the mom says it's okay, yep, she can wear it, because not all parents allow certain dresses. Some are a little bit more revealing than others. If the dress fits, if it's too big, it needs to be altered, I'll do the alterations. They come back, do a second fitting, and the dress is there. The only request I have is if when they're done with the prom, they bring the dress back and it recycles again.
Okay, so they do not get to keep the dresses forever?
If they want to, they can. But since it is being donated, it would be my way of having them to learn to give back. So it's a learning experience for them. You get something that someone else didn't use that I could have that's pretty. Let me give back to the next girl.
Are you thinking of getting something for the guys, for the young boys?
Sure,
okay.
Sure. I mean, most of the guys rent a tux. Guys are different from girls. Girls, I want the dress, I want the pretty dress. And guys are like, okay, get me in the suit and get me out of the suit. So if there are, guys out there that want to donate a suit that they've had in the past, that'd be perfect.
Regina says the dress is available to girls for any needed occasion. She is currently looking for larger size dresses. To learn more about Regina's charitable work, or if you are interested in donating or finding a dress, please reach her online at Ma Duke's Alterations and Quilting. And now we're taking a look at the fox season that just started. So get your facts straight. It's really important to know who these animals are and what they do and if they're dangerous or not. So we decided to visit the New England Wildlife Center in Barnstable to learn more. Foxes are some of our most amazing neighbors. To learn more about them, we decided to visit the New England Wildlife Center, the Cape Cod branch located in Barnstable, to learn the facts. Seen foxes lately? Well, it is the season.
This time of year, foxes are beginning to den. It's important to know foxes will often return to the same dens year after year. And what that means is they're looking for shelter so they can get together in a family unit and have a litter.
That brings us to your backyard. These wild, furry neighbors are not dangerous, but keep your distance.
If you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. There is always a potential that they could have rabies, and that would make them act abnormally. So you should never approach a fox. But if you are concerned that it is neurologic, meaning it can walk weirdly or have a head tilt or circle, you should definitely call your local animal control or wildlife hospital.
The encroachment to your land is driven by survival instincts. Foxes mostly try to avoid a human encounter. However, sometimes they can den in your yard.
So if you have exposed decking, or a shed that's lifted a little bit off the ground, or a wood pile in your backyard. Those are the types of spots that foxes are looking for. So if you're not interested in having foxes near your yard, or you have pets or small kids, it's probably in your best interest this time of year to start to repair those things, close them up, and make sure they are fox-proof.
Why so much fuss about a fox?
Foxes are incredible animals. They're not only interesting to look at, but they're providing a lot of services that make our everyday lives better. Think about rat and rodent problems. They are a natural control on that. They keep our ecosystem balanced, and they keep Cape Cod and Massachusetts healthy. They're nothing to be afraid of. If you're lucky enough to see one at a safe distance, they can be incredibly interesting to look at. The things you want to be careful for is you want to make sure that you're protected, your pets are protected, and the foxes are protected by cutting down on contact, not feeding outside, and making sure that your structures that you've built in your home are fox-proof.
It is okay to sympathize with foxes, especially when you notice that they are in distress or could be sick. Just do not take matters into your own hand. Reach out to your local wildlife center for help.
We get a lot of phone calls this time of year about people who are seeing foxes with mange. A mange is a skin disease that animals can get. It's caused by a mite that burrows into the skin, and it causes them to be very, very itchy, and that causes them to self-traumatize and then open wounds up in their skin. And that poses them to getting secondary bacterial infections, and it further debilitates them so they can't hunt appropriately, and they get skinny and then just get weaker and weaker. So people see foxes out there that are losing their fur, very skinny, and they call us all the time for help. And mange is a treatable illness. It just requires a lot of medications, so we never advise to try to treat them in the wild. It's actually illegal to put food out in the wild for them. So if they are debilitated enough and can be caught by hand or a net, call your local animal control if you see them in your yard, and they can come out and assist you. And once we have them in care, it's a long process and it requires several different types of medications. But if we get it in time, we can definitely treat it.
In addition, if you happen to notice a den under your deck, no matter how cute these babies can be, please do not step in to nurture them.
A fun fact that both mom and dad provide food for the young. So as long as the fox are just past weaning, if you suspect potentially something has happened to mom, dad is still around providing for the babies. But if you've noticed that they're starting to become a little bit more vocal, if both parents haven't returned in a couple of days, then the pups might start wandering a little bit from the den. So at that point, that's when you call your local wildlife hospital or animal control. Never attempt to interact with them yourself. They can become habituated, and that's when they get really used to being around humans, and that's something we do not want to do. Anytime we have kits or pups in our hospital, we try to limit our contact with them just so that they do not see humans as a food source or providing a food source, so that they constantly come up to them. Because if a fox comes up to a person in the wild, they're going to think it has rabies, so that's a bad sign.
One thing to keep in mind is that though foxes are not threatening, please use precaution. Call your local wildlife center and do not play a hero. Reporting from Barnstable, I am Queen Banda of WCTV. Hello and thank you for being with us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where we were today in history. On this day in Bostonian history, the siege of Boston occurred in 1776. The American forces led by George Washington took Dorchester Heights from the British by bombing Boston with artillery launched from Lichmere Point. Many of the cannons used there were stolen from the British by Benedict Arnold in New York month prior. This bombing went on for days, leading to the British evacuating Boston. This event is celebrated in Boston every year on March 17th. And also today in sports history, Wilt Chamberlain scores 100 points in a game in 1962. The 7-foot-tall center who played for the Philadelphia Warriors at the time made 36 field goals and 28 free throws to set the record for most points scored in an NBA game. Nobody has ever came close to breaking this record, but second place belongs to the late, great Kobe Bryant. And also today in American history, Texas declared independence from Mexico in 1836. The main reason for this declaration was because Mexico had prohibited the practice of slavery. The American Texans in the area wanted to protect the ability to keep slaves, so they separated from Mexico. Texas would remain as its own nation for a decade before joining the United States formally in 1846. This would initiate the Mexican-American War, which lasted until 1848. And for today's birthday, shout out goes to Dr. Seuss, born in Springfield, Massachusetts, as Theodore Geisel. This legendary children's poet was born on this day in 1904. He has sold over 200 million copies of translated in several languages throughout the world. His first bestseller was The Cat in the Hat, which was first released in 1957. And that's all for this morning history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online under history.com. Stay with us because the coffee segment is next. But first, let's take a look at our events calendar. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a program that I did regarding school choice law of 1991 in reviews with the Wareham School Department in the Massachusetts Department of Education. Take a look. If a monopoly is bad for business, so is for the education system. Thus comes the Massachusetts Interdistrict School Choice Law of 1991, which provided an open enrollment policy for K through 12 public schools in the Commonwealth. The law incorporates the notion that students' ability to choose will promote better schools and education programs.
We know that not every school is the same, and not every child is the same. So to the degree we can match up children with a learning environment where they will flourish and that speaks to their needs, we think students will do better. And that's the sort of the theory behind all of these different choice programs.
Okay. The law was not the first stab at choice, because families with means have always had access to better education through private sector or by moving to better school districts.
Well, I believe that the family, that parents are the primary educator for their child or their children. And we have, to a large extent, removed a lot of that ability to direct and control by forcing way too many families to assign schools based on where they live. Now, if you have resources, if you're powerful or connected, you figure out a way to find a good school for your child. But if you don't, you're the ones that get left behind and miss out. And so we believe that education freedom for everyone is a critical piece of our future.
The uniqueness, however, of this law is the equal access to preferred public schools regardless of your means or residence. And while the law allows the district to vote whether to receive students or not, it is against the law to deny a student from leaving their home district. Sending districts or students' home district is responsible of up to 75% or $5,000 of per pupil expenditure to the receiving district.
For the districts that take students in under the school choice program, it's basically bringing in a little extra money to fill some seats that would otherwise be empty in the classroom. So it helps them maintain their programs and brings in a little more revenue for them. That's the incentive.
And those who are sending more than they're taking in, a lesson to be learned?
I would certainly, if I was in that district, be asking the question, why are they going out? What are they trying to get in other districts that we are not offering? And perhaps we should be offering it here. And to the degree that those conversations happen and local school officials ask about what parents are looking for, I think that's a good thing, and that will help make our educational system better.
The argument over choice is an old one, emotive and logical at the same time. Research shows that through competition, choice, and access to better education, the inter-district school choice law has helped to improve education in the Commonwealth. The opposite argument is just as convincing, as opponents of the law will point out to the insufficient state funding formula, the lack of accessibility to choice, and the reality versus perception as some of the major reasons to why the law is not only harmful but unfair to public education as we know it. So let's take a look at how schools are funded.
So the bulk of our school funding comes from what you call the Chapter 70 program. We figure out for each school district how much money the district should have at a minimum, and that's based on the number of students and their demographics. And then we figure out how much the town can afford from its property taxes and other revenues, and then the state contributes whatever the difference is in the form of state aid, Chapter 78.
What poor school districts are fighting for is an equitable school funding formula, one that will give them a fair chance to compete against affluent school districts.
I think there's a general consensus that we need to raise that minimum, the so-called foundation budget, to a higher amount to reflect all of the needs and demands of schooling in the 21st century. So that's something that the legislature is actively working on right this second.
School districts are encouraged to spend more than what is required for their schools. However, it is not possible when you lack additional funds to spend. When the school committee presents their desired budget and when you don't get the full amount of money, what does it mean for the school department?
That means things get cut, whether it's capital cost, capital improvements gets cut, supplies, materials. We would like to have, support staff to work with every classroom in the elementary. That's just not fiscally possible.
The history of school funding in Wareham has always revealed a dire picture. Are our schools adequately funded?
No. Is the town adequately funded? No.
So I am the Director of Student Services, so that kind of covers a very wide gamut of things in the district. I cover nursing and guidance, special education, and a lot of what we do in this office is around special education and Medicaid, Department of Children and Families, homeless students and families, and supporting all of those and all the legislation initiatives and pieces that go along with that, including transportation, and all of the meetings, like all of the best interest determination meetings, and all of the pieces that go along with educating the students that fall into those categories. So it's a lot of different pieces.
Wareham School District has one of the largest group of STAR program students, which is a short-term assessment and rapid rehabilitation program. The district is also responsible for one of the largest foster and shelter care replacements in the state. But none of these facts put us on top of the list for extra state funding. So how flexible is your budget? Can you say, no, I cannot do this?
No. That is not allowed. We cannot say no. And certainly we cannot use budget or money as a reason for not being able to do it. It is, expected that if, the child's best interest is determined to be that they remain in our community and we have to bus them from, and we have children as far away as Quincy and Weymouth and Brockton that we are transporting back to Wareham every day, that we are expected to pay for that, and we cannot use funding as an excuse for not doing that. That is the law, and it has to be done. So we have to figure out where that money comes from.
What does figuring out where the money comes from means?
It means we need to, sometimes take from places where we might be able to offer a professional development or some money that we may have wanted to utilize for something else, that we might have to move that money over to transportation. So it's always kind of like a balancing act.
Right now, because of Proposition 2.5, it restricts how much we can raise our taxes and when. This district, school district, and several others, the whole state actually, are working towards revising Chapter 70 formula, how schools are funded. Mm-hmm. How long that debate is going to take and what will be the outcome, Wareham may have to come back and revise how we fund our school department.
No.
No?
How we fund the school department is through town meeting. The amount of monies that may be available, that may change, but we still have to run as a complete town.
How does this department help such a school, help recognize those districts where they're doing all they can, but there's so much you can do for such a little budget?
Right. No, that's a great question, and there's no question that some of the enrollment in the school choice program is from parents in under-resourced districts taking advantage of a better funded district nearby. That's really, again, part of this whole debate that we talked about before of state funding for education, and whether we're giving those, the real answer to that is not just limiting school choice, it's making sure all the districts have the resources they need to provide a good quality education. So that's the debate that's going on in the legislature. We've seen a number of proposals out there. The governors, the House and Senate both have proposals, and all of them involve a very significant increase in state funding for education over the next decade. So we're very much aware, because again, small numbers of students are choicing out. We care just as much about the 90% of the students who, for whatever reason, are staying in their home district, and we want to make sure they have a good education too. So we're very optimistic that the legislature will port out a bill very soon that will significantly increase the resources available to all those districts.
But there are also those who would contest. The money is not the root problem, but surely has made things difficult.
We are already successful for our children, and we don't have what we need. So in other words,
money is not the problem.
I would say it could be part of the problem, but it is never, to me, a reason why you're still not going to do everything in your power to make it great. Because we could have that argument forever, right? People always end up saying it's never enough. You know, but I think if you're smart and you know your population really well, then what you do is you target, right? And you figure out where the root cause of that problem is, and you find a way, somehow, you might have to take a little from here or there to make it happen, and then you have to be patient.
I feel fortunate that we're able to do what we do, but we need more. Like, we always need more. And so there's things that we would love to incorporate and programs that I would love to have that we just don't have the funding to be able to, I think, beef up the things the way that I would like to see them be beefed up. Like, I would love to have more board certified behavior analysts. I would love to have more ABA support for our autism programs. I would love, you know, for us to have some more opportunities to have social workers embedded in some of our programs, but right now that funding is just not available for us. And there's always trainings and things that you always want, you know, programming and training and professional development for your staff and opportunities to get those things in that cost money and that you would love to have and that you see and have data to support that it works in other places, but we just can't access it because we don't have the funding to access it right now.
If we were to raise more taxes, from what we are generating from our tax revenue to what we are supposed to be based on our needs, what is the number?
We have been so preoccupied with dealing with emergencies that are short-term in nature in terms of solutions and the like, that no one has really sat down and said, we need X number of dollars. We need X number of dollars to upgrade the sewer system. We need X number of dollars to upgrade our ability for the municipal facilities. We need X number of dollars to be able to upgrade our school system to deliver a better education to the children there. We were talking about MCAS before we started taping here. They've been rated at a level 3 for 5+ years. How we address that, how we do that, we haven't had the ability to make those future projections because we can't support them. We don't have the wherewithal to do so. And so it's almost a waste of time to say, well, this is what we could do if we had this, when you're preoccupied with struggling to satisfy what the needs are with the limited resources that you're dealing with. The school system has the same problem the municipal side has. One is producing a different product. That's all, the only difference. The cost of that product is the same. Doesn't make any difference who's producing it. The costs are the same. Everybody is trying to do their best. And I want you to know that we have a fantastic staff, whether it be the school system or the municipal side, to accomplish what they are is extraordinary.
Would you say we have skipped a point, to your opinion? Because you're telling me that the state is working on revising Chapter 70A funding. Meanwhile, school choice is still active. Meanwhile, those districts who are looking to do all they can, and they're doing it, but they don't have that additional funding to keep those programs sustainable. Should we pause everything until we get the chapter revised?
I wouldn't argue that. Again, school choice is relatively small numbers of students, and there's clear evidence that those students are benefiting from their choices that they're making. So I don't know why we would punish them while we're looking to improve things for everybody else.
Opponents of school choice will also argue that when a public school loses a percentage of students to another district, the school cannot reduce cost by an equivalent percent. Proponents of this argument will tell you that when you lose some, you save some. At least that is how it looks in Wareham.
The teaching ratio is about 12-to-1 based on what the documentation I have from the last presentation the school department did for their budget. The average teaching, based on the charts I looked up in the Department of Education, is around $74,000 per teacher. So if you divide the number of children who are in Upper Cape school choice and by what we're going to pay for the teachers, because you would not need that number of additional teachers to teach that students, comes to around 1.4 or 1.5 million. You need support staff, benefits for the teachers, buses, space. So you're going to eat up that 1.5 just with your support staff and your equipment and the Chromebooks you got to purchase, benefits for the teachers, etc. So you don't actually have a large amount of monies left over to say, oh, we need it for the school system. No, by the time you're through paying all your overhead, you're back at square one. You're break even.
So we are we're neither losing nor making money.
Correct.
By losing our students.
Indeed. If you brought them all into the school system, you'd have to pay almost the same amount of money to house them, teach them, staff, to support staff for teachers and all. So school choice, even though they've gone elsewhere, I don't think the school system itself, the Wareham school system itself, would benefit greatly from having them here.
Apart from the millions of dollars that public schools lose via the inter-district school choice, the state assures us that the program is not the threat we should be worrying about. Rather, we should be concerned with the rising popularity of the charter schools. What does that say, the popularity of charter schools to the declining of the public education as we know it? What does that say?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the fact that every parent wants the best education for their child, and each child has specific needs. And if you can find a school that's outside of your district that you feel meets your child's needs better, you're going to want to send them to that school.
Okay, so our public schools nowadays, majority of them are not meeting those needs?
Clearly, for the parents who are sending their students to charter schools or other district schools outside their home district, those parents clearly feel that those choices are better meeting their students' needs than their home district.
What are some of those needs you feel that the schools are lacking?
Again, I think each parent will have their own answer to that question. But certainly some of the things we hear about, again, are differences in school environments, large schools versus small schools. Some students do better in a small environment with small classes. Others may want the extra course offerings that a larger school might provide, extracurricular activities, sports programs. There's lots of reasons why a parent would choose one school over another.
I can't shake the idea of that. It's all about money, and if we have enough funding that any particular district can really turn things around and sustain that student, unless that kid needs a specific academic program that district does not provide. Rather than that, I don't see why else, apart from lack of funding, that will prevent a school from improving and sustaining their student population.
Well, one of the things, of course, we constantly remind folks is that funding is necessary, but we have lots of school districts that spend similar amounts of money that have very different levels of performance.
How many people you believe in the system are like you, that they're there for the kids and it doesn't matter what they're making? And it doesn't matter the stress. Does not matter the many hats they're asked to wear.
I don't know the answer to that question. I would like to say that everyone has part of that in them, right? That's here serving kids.
But apart from whether a district is set to gain or lose money via choice, it is imperative to ask, why are our kids leaving? When I looked on our website, under the fiscal year 2020 budget public hearing, I saw the number 279 students. That was of January 1st this year. Those are the students that are outsourcing school. do you explain to 179 students?
Well, in that number is also Upper Cape, Bristol Aggie. There's a number of the students there. And then other students have gone out. Some, their brothers and sisters had gone out, and other parents just say, I don't want my child to go to Wareham. And sometimes when they make those kind of statements, I just think that some student, I'm not sure that there's really a reason that can be talked about unless we're ready to have a very honest and open communication, and to really look at what's going on in society.
Apart from the money debate, there is also the issue of accessibility, or the lack of it, in the abuse that comes with access. Although most choice parents, students, and receiving districts cite academic and programmatic features as the main reason for choosing a district, a state has no way of proving the case. That is, opponents of choice will argue that a family may exercise the inter-district school choice program just because they do not approve diversity or wealth within their district. Therefore, advantaged students will leave poor and weaker school districts in search for stronger programs in more affluent communities, leaving behind increasingly disadvantaged school system. Have you seen a case where parents abusing school choice?
Of course, we don't, talk directly to the parents who are participating in school choice. I would be naive to say that it never happens. But again, most of the time when we talk to parents, it's they all have the same interest in their children's education. We have a very robust METCO program in Boston. So you talk about Mattapan parents. They have children of color who they will put on a bus for an hour and a half to send them to a school that is disproportionately white, because they think their children are going to get a better education there.
Is that true?
Is what true?
Would that be true, that disproportionately white, they will get a better education?
That's certainly what the parents believe, and there's some statistical evidence that that those students will do better in those environments. Now, again, we can talk about the resources, although Boston itself is a very high-spending district. It's complicated.
The lack of accessibility also plays in when you consider that under school choice, parents are responsible of their child's transportation.
One of the unfortunate things that happened with the school choice program is we used to provide funding to help lower-income families who participate in the program to pay for the transportation to their other school, to their new school. That was defunded a number of years ago, and as a result, it's a little bit harder for particularly lower-income families to participate because they have to provide the transportation themselves.
Now, to me, that creates an obstacle for these parents who want the best for their children, and there is a way to get it, but they can't get it. So how do we revise or relook school choice law?
Well, there's always the option, of course, to fund that again, but again, I think that's again another reason why the charter school option for many of those parents has proven to be more popular, because charter school enrollment does come with transportation for most students.
And also there is reality versus perception, as how a district might benefit from the perceived notion that they are a better district based on those choosing in. The opposite is detrimental. For years now, Wareham School District's reputation has been at war with its reality, and school choice is not making matters better. Somebody may hop a district due to perceived perception. We are dealing with that, perception versus reality of Wareham Public Schools. What is our reality and what is the perception?
Well, our reality is our students we certainly see our achievement scores growing. We see opportunities in Wareham. Many other school districts do not have the same opportunities as what our students do. And our students are able to get into Ivy League schools. Our students have access to higher level courses. Our students can travel to Bridgewater and graduate with enough credits that they can pretty much eliminate a year of college. There's many opportunities here. The perception, unfortunately, is that sometimes there's chaos in the classrooms, or chaos in the halls, or the kids get a second-rate education. That is absolutely not true. Do we have students with some disabilities that might cause an outburst? Absolutely. But does it impact other students? We work very hard to make sure that all students' needs are met. I'm sure people would differ with that, but I would also invite them to come in, and we'd be happy to give them a tour, happy for them to observe what's going on in our schools.
Do you feel that the Wareham community, the parents, understand the gravity of what you guys are facing?
I would say that that some parents do. I wish more people would examine how wonderful things are here, because I think of course, we struggle in areas like every other school system does, but there are so many amazing things going on here every day that I think people need to see, because we really do have some incredible, for the size of our school system and the limited resources, we have some incredible things go on here every day. And we have some incredible staff that work with our kids every day and that we are so fortunate to have. And it's one of the reasons why I want to stay here and want to be here, is because I'm amazed every day when I see the things that we do with the limited resources that we have.
Wareham is working on its image. One of its big revamps is building a new elementary school for pre-K to 4th grade, in addition to evaluating its curriculum.
When I first got here, I put a data system in place. So we started to collect formative data on kindergarten and grade 1 and 2 and all the way up to grade 5. And we started to look at where they were, where their skills were, and what was going on. And once we could identify that, then we'd say, okay, there's a problem.
What was the results? What did the results show?
Like, for example, between 50 and 60% of our kids in kindergarten are below the norm in reading. That's huge. That's a lot of children. And they want to intervene, like they want to do intervention, but that's intervening with 60% of your kids? You'd need double the staff, triple the staff to do that, right? So that's a problem. And then they come to school and they make some gains, but they never get to the norm because they're not there, right? So then they come back after the summer and it's like they've never been to school. They take the test in 1st grade and they're back down again. You're like, what happened? Why didn't they hold on to that information? Well, it's because it wasn't necessarily, you know what I mean? It wasn't secure. They didn't necessarily really know. So we've been following that cohort since we've been tracking. And that cohort that we started the work in February of 2017, we started doing brain work and integrating that work into the reading program. And we started flexible grouping and 90 minutes of instruction. So 5 teachers share 5 groups. The lower groups get more support. Like, we've been really smart about how we go about formulating this plan.
In addition to revamping the way they teach, the department has also introduced various of rigorous academic programs.
And we've also introduced the middle years program through the International Baccalaureate, which is a lot of performance-based assessment, because I would argue that that's much more relevant than MCAS if those performance-based assessments are rigorous, right?
And that program is not so common. You don't find
it is not.
Okay, so tell us more about why, first of all, why it's not so common and why we decided to have it in our school.
Part of it was because when I got here, they basically made the statement that we need to be more rigorous. We need.
Who made this statement?
It was like through the superintendent, school committee, you know, those kind of. We need major change. I mean, the superintendent was hired because they wanted to shake it up. We needed to shake it up. So, and I came a year after. So she was here a year and then I came. And we don't need to tell teachers what to do necessarily. So if you're looking at a program, like a curriculum program, they're sort of scripted, right? They go lesson by lesson, task by task, and I'm really tired of those companies making a lot of money and boring instruction, to be honest with you. What the International Baccalaureate offers is just a philosophy and pedagogical practices and common language that actually promote critical thinking, collaboration, problem solving, creativity, and give kids a chance to argue with what's being presented to them in a way that makes them active participants in their learning.
What's the value of this program outside Wareham? When kids graduate high school, how do they distinguish themselves from other kids?
Well, I can give a couple of examples. I mean, one of the students that received an International Baccalaureate diploma was accepted to Harvard. Another was accepted to Tulane and was given $7,000 more scholarship money as a result of her International Baccalaureate diploma. They are extremely well prepared for college. College is easy for them. They struggle through high school. They fight, you know, they're learning and their brain hurts, but they get to college and it's they're so familiar with how it works in college.
It's more rigorous than AP?
It's different. I wouldn't say more or less. There's more onus on the student in IB.
How is the new school fitting in that greater plan of reconstructing not only our image, but giving our students everything we got?
Well, the new school is it's a very exciting enterprise. First of all, it was built around education, not the building built and then we fit in. So, and it's been done with very responsible allocation of resources. So there's a large group of people on the building committee who are committed to this school and have done a really good job of checks and balances to make sure that our kids are getting everything that they need, but that we're not like, there's not an indoor swimming pool on the top floor. You know what I'm saying? You know, like it's reasonable. We're not asking for things that we can't afford in the new building. But going there, there'll be enough plugs in the walls so they can plug in their devices, which neither of the schools have enough plugs because they're old, right? They don't have enough electricity and things like that to make what we're doing work. They won't have to be really creative, I guess. We're trying to figure out how to do this really cool project because everything that they need will be there. They won't have to be like, well, what room do we have to go to? Where are enough plugs? We could do this or we could do that. Or where do we find that just takes all of that other work and will allow us to just get it done.
And now the $1 million question. Why should you care if your neighbor's child is opting out of your district? When a school is labeled as a good school by the state, neighboring towns, by the standards, quantified standards, what benefit does it have for our town? How would we benefit when our town is at level 1 for MCAS and everybody wants to be here?
When people want to move here, their real estate agent can go up and there's a 3 or 4, several as a matter of fact, real estate national real estate organizations that evaluate all the towns. And when you're looking to move to Massachusetts, you're looking for the individual communities. We're a beautiful seaside community. What's our school system like? So they make the options based on that, and these school systems are rated in those organizations. And unfortunately, we don't rate that high because of our difficulties. I mean, it's not the fact it's managed poorly. I'm not in any way suggesting that. It's just that we are not able to do better than we're trying to do.
Which affects our property values?
Oh, indeed it would. Indeed,
it would, or
yes,
it is?
Yes, it would. More people come in, you have expanded, more residences, perhaps more industry. So that expands our tax base. It also increases the value of our existing facilities. So that means we raise the tax rate.
Which means the solution towards Wareham getting to where we desire to be is fixing the schools.
Fixing a lot of things.
Speaking of that priority list of yours,
I'm not doing, I told you I refuse to make prioritization.
If a district loses a student, whose fault is it?
Again, I wouldn't characterize it as anybody's fault. It's a choice that parents make. We get to choose what restaurants we want to eat at when we go out for dinner, and it's not that it's one restaurant's fault if I choose another one. That's what I've chosen. As important a decision as a child's education, parents want those choices.
What's your opinion regarding, then going back to the school choice part, are we concerned with the number of students we're losing?
I don't know. I think, though, that it seems that there is a shift. I don't want to jinx it, but it seems that, we have students coming for the IB program. For example, we have from, where are they from? Marion. We have a student from Marion who's coming here by choice. We have another student who was homeschooled, not living in town, who's here and loves it, is just having a blast. So we have kids that are either choosing in or staying and not going other places at the high school. So for example, we had 20 plus less students go to the vocational technical school. That's great for us, right? I don't know if I would, I don't worry about it.
You don't?
No, I don't. I have a job to do.
You're going to do it regardless.
And I give it 1,000% of everything I have every day, as much as possible, right? And I always think that that's what I can bring, right? I'm responsible for my own stuff, right? And so I can't control what other people do. They're going to make decisions based on a number of different variables.
And so we cannot argue against parents saying my child will be best fit in Wesley versus Wareham. We cannot say don't do it.
No.
But how would you convince a parent to say your child will get the best results or will have a best education, or for our well-being of the entire community, it's best if you let your child go to school here in Wareham?
Well, I can offer examples of our data. When you look at the improvements that have been made in the district, our teachers work very, very hard. We're bringing in programs that support the needs of our students. We're working to address what needs to be addressed. I would wonder how many kindergarten students leave kindergarten in some districts reading. Our students do. For the majority of our students are reading by the time, and writing. And the different opportunities that students have in Wareham are amazing. And the teachers, the hard work, the care, that, yeah. I would ask them to please not listen to social media, to go directly to the schools, talk to the principal, talk to the teachers, come and visit me. Happy to show you what's going on in our classes. Happy to sit and show you the opportunities that our students have. But please, let's stop bashing the schools until we know the facts.